Hey everyone, my name's Andy. I'm from the Finding Value Finance channel. Today we've got with us Andrew. He's the silver Amir from Twitter. He's also a platinum member on the Finding Value website, and he does post regularly in the Discord. We wanted to get together and talk about the impact of high energy costs. What does it look like? What does that future look like? What are the ramifications of increased energy costs and what impacts they could potentially have on the markets and in everyday life and all that stuff. So I guess the focus would be high energy costs. So Andrew, what impacts are you thinking high energy costs would have, and how would that change our world looking forward?
So the so the background of this was I at work on Monday, I had a coworker who I would call a friend too. He came over to me and he was like, "Man, this sucks." And I was like, "What's wrong? What sucks?" And he goes, "I just ordered a new like speaker bar. I guess you can put it below your TV." And he says, "I just ordered a new one, and because I ordered it from this website, it doesn't have next day shipping like Amazon Prime, so I'm not going to get it for another 2 days." And so instead of him getting it on Monday, he's not going to get it till Wednesday. And I thought about that for a second, and it just seemed so just first. It was one of those first world problems that we have, and we get so entitled over luxuries for sure, like first world luxuries. And then when he said that, I thought about that for a little longer, and it hit me. Man, the idea of next day shipping is really because we live in a cheap energy environment of at least to a certain degree that variable kicks into it. And if things were crazy expensive, would a service like Amazon still thrive in that kind of environment? And made me think, how is that tied to stocks? Well, it's like, well, is eBay, Amazon, and Overstock, and all these shipping type commercial companies, would they still be around? And I'm not talking about like a prices double, energy costs double. I'm talking, we hit a really bad crisis. Would those companies still be around? And I don't know if they would be, because it wouldn't be worth it for the consumer.
I'm I'll take the opposite end.
Okay.
So you're taking that maybe they wouldn't be around. I'm saying that it's more efficient to actually order from them than it would be for you and me and everyone else on my block, where they go and they deliver all these packages house by house. What if we all went at different times to go, shop for those things? We would all take our cars, and it would be a lot less efficient than us browsing online and ordering this and having it delivered, where they do one route and deliver like, 100 different people's stuff. So you could argue that Amazon is more efficient from a fuel perspective than each individual driving to the store, getting it, and driving back separately. So that'd be 100 separate
Yeah.
customers driving to the store, driving back, then one truck or big van just dropping off all packages on a route. What's your opinion there?
Yeah, I've thought about that too, and that's a good point. I don't know if we really have the data. I mean, I'm definitely not interested enough to crunch those numbers, at least
Yeah.
not yet. But I had to go to Best Buy today. Um, I've upgraded my computer, so I needed to get a new HDMI cable. And it's about a mile and a half from my house. And, to take that point, I can just ride a bike, right? It's mile and a half on a bike is maybe 15 minutes.
It's
So
pretty
if we
cold out
really,
there though.
no, it's not
Or it
too bad
was.
today. Yeah, it was this morning, but today's not too bad. But if you had to look at that and you go, hey, driving my car just there and back would be $15, or I can ride a bicycle and suck up the cold, and that's free. So I don't know, right? It depends where you are, how far you live. People in cities can just walk everywhere, so that's nice. People in cities like where we live, where it's a medium-sized city, we can still ride bikes almost everywhere if we needed to. Um,
Mhm.
and so I don't know. I wonder how much more walking and riding of bicycles we would actually do if we
The
just don't think it's worth driving a car, even if it's just 2 miles. If you're not
the
bringing anything.
high energy cost cures diabetes.
Oh yeah, I never thought of that.
Or cures specific ailments or whatever it is, like overweight just drops.
Drive-throughs would go away.
Yeah, that would be interesting. Now,
You
what
could
about the ramifications of high energy costs to the markets? Now, there's a couple of things that pop out in my head. Generally speaking, when oil prices go up, interest rates go up. So I know you could say we've got a large debt for America. And if energy prices go up, interest rates go up, I think it could actually, could it break America, the actual currency, break the bond market? Because and I shouldn't say break the bond market. It would break, well, yes, it would, because if energy prices kept going up, it's going to drag interest rates up. And what that is, or inflation up, I should say, it drags inflation up. And if it drags inflation up, it's going to basically put pressure on the bond market to sell off, which then brings interest rates higher. And if interest rates go up, then you have to roll all the debt over into higher interest rates, and your interest payments are going to skyrocket. So basically, what Russia, if Russia cuts back their production, they can bankrupt all the debt, higher debt countries through
Yeah.
inflation. I'm not saying
I've read that as the BRICS are like an agreement to do that. And I'm not, I don't know for a fact, right? I'll challenge that a little bit, Andy, because the environment that we're in right now is all fake, and it was created by people. And I don't think there's anything that's going to stop them from changing the rules or just altering the game itself. It's like we're all playing in a game where the game designer still exists. So if the game is not going their way, they're just going to change the rules and change the policies and change the overall game design to just re-benefit them somewhere else. I don't know if that's a currency reset or what, or just some kind of giant loan forgiveness, and they just wipe everything and go, okay, we're going to go with this new currency now. And everyone that was planning and trying to leverage for the destruction of the dollar, now they're screwed, because it's like, man, these cheaters, they did it again. It's like, yeah, we know they rule the world. Like, no kidding. Of course they were going to change the rules to benefit themselves. So I don't know. It's a fun, I think it's fun to think about for sure, and to bounce ideas back and forth as to how they could do it, or what if they lose, and those kinds of things. But it's hard to say how you can take advantage of it, because I just know they're going to do something to win for themselves, right? Whoever they is.
Mm-hmm. And
Yeah.
when you mean by win, what do you mean by win? Like they're just gonna profit off it themselves and
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, for example, like what if they do somehow go for the gold standard? Like, I've heard people say that if they do that, you'll know why, because they're going to all buy gold before they do it.
which they're all doing right now. They're buying all this world central banks are buying a bunch of gold because
Yeah.
they probably don't trust each other's banks to
Right.
hold bonds or anything like that. So they're like, we don't trust that currency. Just go buy gold. And then when everybody does it, then you've got a problem. But that
Yeah.
also
We'll see.
that happened in the 1970s, kind of a run at gold, and that was from an energy crisis of peak oil in the 1970s of just America. So that did kind of happen already to some extent in just one small portion of the world. But we could have, we grew into the production capacity of the world. Now, if you're at the world's capacity, what do you do next? And if energy gets super expensive, I wonder what would go up the most. I mean, obviously, people think directly like energy will go up the
Right.
most, but I don't think that would be the case. I think something else, that like it's difficult to know the tertiary effects of energy because it's been in this surplus for so long. We don't know what that world necessarily looks like. I mean, maybe gold becomes the most valuable and best investment under that condition, like the 1970s, because I think gold went up. I think it went up like 35 times, maybe,
Oh,
or
okay.
so. It went from it went, where was it, like 850 was the peak, and I think the bottom was like 35 or $38 or something like that. If it's 38, it went up 22 times, and I don't think oil didn't go up that much. Oil didn't go up 22 times, so it's going to be interesting to see what goes up the most. What do you think will go up the most of any asset in a world where energy gets really constrained?
So a asset as in like a commodity asset?
Well, anything. It could be
Anything.
anything. Anything. It could be Hot Wheels. I don't care what it is.
Yeah,
I like
yeah.
using
Well,
Hot Wheels.
I'd like to think about that a little bit more because I wouldn't mind trying to answer that with something outside the box because obviously, like the go-to of what comes to the forefront of your brain is going to be some type of commodity. But I wonder if there's something else. Like, the easy answer would be precious metals or
Well, what
maybe,
about something that's a product that's already assembled that you can't get a hold of, like a
yeah,
computer?
right.
I mean, would that become incredibly valuable if they can't produce computers or something happens to the
I think,
supply chain and then
you know
everybody
what, you know
wants.
what? Yeah, actually, this is a good segue because we've talked about this before, just privately, real
Mhm.
estate. Um, because if we have such a huge high energy input environment, the price of a new build isn't going to be tied to the current real estate market. It's going to be tied to the inputs.
Mhm.
So I'll just throw out a number, okay? If the amount of wood required to build a 1,200 square foot home in a high energy market cost $3 million just to get the wood, well, guess what? Your house is going to be like 6 million, 7 million. It doesn't matter if 5 years ago the neighbor's home, which was already built, was selling for 800 grand. If it costs $7 million to build a house, it's going to sell for 7.5 or whatever margins they go for. I don't. I think most people only want to tie real estate and homes to supply and demand in the market. There's a second variable that we really haven't seen hit yet, but that is what if all the commodities that it takes to build a home become so expensive that now the real estate market isn't being priced by supply and demand, but it's just being priced by how much it costs to actually build the thing.
Yeah, but another thing with real estate is that's all tied with like lending. So if people struggle, if there has to be a great, we'll call it reconfiguration in the markets, and people have to lose jobs in certain sectors, gain jobs in other sectors, there could be a transition period where the loaning and all that stuff gets all jumbled up because everyone has to shift. They have to lose jobs in order to get jobs somewhere else.
Hmm.
And I don't think that transition is going to be all that smooth. It's not like you can take, I don't know, someone who makes something that's not worth anything in a high energy environment. I don't know. We'll call it. Let's say they work at Party City or something like where people don't. Who cares about Party City, right? But then it's not like they can just pick up and go get a job over at Halliburton or ExxonMobil and have the skill set to do that. So I think there's going to be a lot of friction that occurs also, and a great, we'll say like a everyone in certain sectors they're gonna get hurt, like technology and all that. They'll lose jobs there because that's not a necessity for life, and
Yeah.
it's gonna transfer all to the necessities of life, and we're gonna have more people and more brain power over at the necessities end, thinking about how to gain either energy, food production, I don't know, whatever it is, on that end. What what's your thoughts around that? Like, you think that's a fair statement? Do you think that's something
Yeah,
that would
it
happen?
almost reminds me of I read this book a few years back and then they made a movie on it, but it's called Dune. Um, and it kind of reminds me of that where you have your water suit and you have to do everything you can in that desert environment to just maintain and recycle as much water as possible. So something like that I think would happen where the markets are going to shift to maintain and retain as much energy as we can and not be wasteful. So a lot of those wasteful type jobs, I don't know where they'll transition to, but maybe they'll transition to some other service industry that is low, that it doesn't need as much energy because it's like, oh, we can just throw another body at it. Why use a machine that uses a lot of, but that's hard to think of. I don't know if I'm giving a good example there because I think more obviously machines are going to be more energy efficient than humans are. Because just give it a gallon of gas as opposed to feeding someone 3,000 calories a day. I think
Mm-hmm.
3,000 calories a day is going to be more energy consumption than a gallon of gasoline.
Yeah, yeah, that's true.
Yeah, so I'm
I'm,
I'm not, but the input to create that machine is going to be a lot of fuel.
what about the embedded energy argument where things will be valued based off of how much energy it took to build it?
Yeah, I was just thinking about appliances because those
Mm-hmm.
last long. So about 5 minutes ago, I was thinking, oh, appliance is a good one. Um, like when I first bought my house, 6 years ago, you helped me pick out a dryer and washing machine. We got something from like the mid 2000s off of Craigslist for $100 because you were
Yeah.
like, no, don't waste money at Best Buy or anything like that. Just go get some old stuff and it's gonna run fine. Still runs fine, no
Yep.
issues.
So is mine.
So yeah. And I remember helping you get that one too in the
Yep.
pickup truck. It's like
We got
20 years. They're
a
both 20 years old.
we bought a dryer and a washer for $100 flat,
Yep.
both of them. And the
That's
guy was
that's
just
exactly
getting
what
rid
we
of it.
did.
Yep.
And it
Yeah.
runs
And
just fine.
those are the good ones. Like the ones that are direct driven, they just go in
Yeah.
circles and you can fix them easy too. They're
Yeah,
cheaper.
yeah. I've had to fix the I put too much clothing on the washer, so the little clutch. It's not a clutch, is it? Something like that, and it snapped right off. And easy fix. It was a 80-cent part. Just go in there and fix it. As opposed to hiring some kind of appliance guy because he's got to move the motherboard. He's got to
Yeah,
uninstall
yeah.
your
The new
motherboard, your
ones are
washer.
not good. The old ones are awesome. Like you can,
Yeah,
it's literally like working on an old car. You can just take it apart, put it back together. It's pretty awesome.
but I
So
think that could
mhm,
be embedded energy of some of these older appliances that are going to run almost forever. An older refrigerator, older chest freezer, those kinds of things.
mhm. So you think they're going to go way up in value then, potentially?
I think it's kind of fun to think that they would. The
Hmm.
idea that a refrigerator from 2008 is going to go up in value, meanwhile newer refri just because newer refrigerators are too expensive to manufacture. Kind of an interesting idea.
Yeah, it's kind of like buying like collector cars. We're all looking for a collector washing machines.
Yeah,
We're like paying premiums. We're like, that one doesn't break. We'll buy that one for, it's like going up like 10x and 20x because the dryer and the washer are the most reliable and they don't break and that you can get components for it.
hmm I think another one too might be when you were talking with I think Shabam and you guys were talking about cars. He was looking at the
Mhm.
Corvette and everything, and you were talking about how everyone's trying to go lighter weight, or at least that's not everyone, but a lot of car enthusiasts like to go lighter weight. I think we will end up going lighter weight to be more fuel efficient, and I almost wonder um, motorcycles. What's stopping that from taking off?
Or what
I
about
know it's
bicycles even?
bicycle. Yeah, right. So they have electric bicycles now that are very efficient and very fun. Um, yeah, I never even thought of that. So you go out and get an electric bike, and I can just ride to King Supers and back, and it's just fine, pretty comfortable, no issues. You could probably tow something with it, a little like
Hmm.
a trailer, a little tiny modular trailer that you can take with you. Put all your groceries on there.
Yeah,
I don't
you
know.
could.
It's just different thoughts, right? Bicycles, motorcycles, those might take off. They're way more fuel efficient. They're way cheaper.
Yeah, they're way more
Um,
efficient. Like way, way, way. Because I mean,
yeah,
if you think of it, the bike, let's just say it's an electric one or something. Let's say it weighs like 50 pounds or something like that. And then it carries, someone like me, I think I weigh 200 pounds. So, I mean, your power to weight ratio it's driving me, not the bike.
mhm,
The power is. And then you look at like a car, all of that energy is driving the car. And really, I'm just this little ant in it, so to
yeah,
speak,
yep,
from a weight perspective. So it's pretty wasteful.
yes, very much. Yeah, you,
Yep.
you you optimize the vehicle just to drive the vehicle itself. Yeah.
Yep.
Um, so I think that's going to happen more. So motorcycles might become more or like motorcycle stocks. I don't know if I want to go that far to predict that, but maybe you know what? Let me rephrase that. I think you might see a lot of the car manufacturers actually start building motorcycles, right? So right now, any big name car manufacturer that builds motorcycles, I can think of Honda, and that's Suzuki does it, but Suzuki's not a big car manufacturer in the U.S. Suzuki, Honda, the Japanese market, yeah. So Japanese cars build a lot of Japanese motorcycles, but American
Mhm.
market, Ford, um, Chevy, they don't have motorcycles. So what if you
No.
start seeing that? Wouldn't that be something?
Yeah. I have a Ford motorcycle.
Yeah. I don't know. That might happen. Um, what about things
Yeah.
to avoid? What about things to avoid? Things that are going to go down.
Yeah, things that would go down in a high energy environment, I would think the our currency is just going to get smoked.
Yeah.
Because you need that balance between GDP and um, the growth of the money supply. So I think currencies are going to eat it. I don't think the currency, the way they're designed. I would think that flying would be pretty tough.
Yeah, you're right.
or expensive, I should say.
Huh.
Very, very expensive. I would think anything where time and a movement of an item. So if you want to move it in a short period of time, an item across whatever distance is just going to cost a lot of money. So I would think that trains would become ultra valuable.
I was thinking that. Yeah.
Mhm.
I was also thinking that the trains I was maybe this was 2 weeks ago. I was like, man, I hope the train infrastructure didn't just get removed in the last 40 years as trains have become less common.
Yeah, the thing that I always try to think of though is what's the most leverage play to play a high energy environment? And I always go back like the easiest way to play it would be just go buy precious metals and sit on them because your cost curves and mining would become incredibly expensive. So your cost curves would just go up exponentially. And literally if you hold the thing that's very valuable in your hand, you're I mean those would go up the most with the least amount of risk, I would think. And then, obviously energy service companies and some of these other things would do
Mhm.
quite well. But I'm just trying to think of things that would do horrible. I would say anything that people don't absolutely need for a necessity, I think they're going to get hit bad. So think of anything that people use or do that don't have a
Tourism.
lot of money, but they do it. And then all of a sudden, like all of those people would just not buy it anymore.
What about tourism? Cruises, cruise liners.
I don't
That
know.
that that would be tough.
Like I would say something that's even like that people do all the time, like roller skating or valley
Oh,
fair,
like
like the
a
fair,
daily thing.
going to like those things for fun. Like I think those would get hit.
Oh, like
Like
amusement
anything
parks.
amusement parks or
Yeah,
maybe like things that people like, what would they cut back first out of their budget?
right.
Starbucks, maybe that would get hit. I don't know.
That hey, Andy, that's doomsday scenario. You be careful there. You take Starbucks away from a certain group of people.
Well, I'm just trying to think like what does the average or below person, if they were to get squeezed first, what would they cut?
I
And
I think it's got to be eating out.
possibly, but what do they normally do now? Where they would all start cutting back and not doing.
Let's see. Like, I think Grubhub, those meal delivery services. Every time I see that, I
Oh
just go, that
yeah,
is such a waste of money.
yes.
Such a waste of money. And people are still doing it all the time. I'm going to pay the extra $10 just so someone can deliver me food that's a mile away that I could just drive to. Might be
Hmm.
even more. I think it's more than that. I've never used it. Not once in my life have I ever used
I
that.
haven't used it either.
Oh,
I'm not like that. I can't I can't do it.
yeah. That will
Uh,
probably go away. I don't know if the Uber market would go away and taxi market,
mhm.
but food delivery would probably go away or be less common.
Yeah, I'm still trying to figure out like what the impact, like how people would handle it too, like the psychology and how would someone handle. I don't know. I mean, let's say gas gets to like $10 a gallon,
Yeah.
right? What impact would that have on the majority of people? I mean, it might not even have a big impact. Maybe we just price everyone else out of the South America or in Africa or somewhere else. Like they're the ones getting priced out, and we still continue to use it. I don't know,
Right. Yeah, yeah. If there's a capacity or a supply problem, we would just outbid poorer nations to make sure we get the supply.
but I don't think we really import that much, so
Right.
it's hard to say.
Um, I think let's see. Yeah, let's just go with that number. Let's say a gallon of gas is $10, 10 to $15. I think there would be a huge shift in the average family's like work environment, right? So I think more people would be working from home if they have the option. And I think more companies would offer that as a benefit. They're like,
Mhm.
look, we need you in the office once a week. So just do that. Please just do that. Come in every Monday. And the rest of the days you can work from home.
What about
Or
like people who don't make like a lot of money and then like physical labor? Would there be a gigantic premium where they have to pay, let's say, physical laborers, if they're not getting paid a lot right now, they'd have to pay them a lot more because they would be like, I'm not going to work.
yeah,
Like
yeah, you're
I
right.
literally cannot afford to go to work. So would that see the largest increase in pay of any level? Would be the lower end going up, and then the mid end would get completely compressed,
So
wouldn't it?
so let me give some experience that I have. So I've got a lot of family in Mexico.
Mhm.
They work in the Ford factories down there. At least I think it's Ford. Either way, they work in the factories down there. It's a border city. Um, the the uh the company takes care of people because it's so much cheaper. And I almost think it's similar. It's a similar situation, right, to what you're predicting, where the company actually has a shuttle that goes around and picks everyone up.
Mhm.
So if you can't afford to drive because of how high the energy costs are, it might be likely that some of these construction companies might say something like, "Hey, we have these sponsored, tourist attractions like Aspen is like this, where they buy condos and all their employees live in there." When I was in the Middle East, that's how it was. They have these giant condos, and that's where all the imported workers live. And then the shuttles go over there, they pick everyone up, and then they take them to their next job location. So we might see something like that where it's, employer sponsored transportation, employer sponsored shelter,
Mhm.
potentially. I've never seen that in the US, but I see that everywhere else outside of the US. That's not Europe or anywhere that's not a rich nation. You see, it's very common to see things like that. Even employer
Mhm.
sponsored cell phones.
Yeah, I got one of
I've
those.
seen that. Right, but it's like, you're a minimum wage person and you go to that job because part of that job is we'll give you a smartphone for free and we'll pay for it. Like a benefit that attracts employees to that company. That's what I see in
Yeah,
Mexico.
that's what I have. They give me a smartphone, and I just use it for whatever. Because I mean, I'm not going to carry two phones around. I just refuse to do that.
Yeah, but do any part-time workers or the minimum wage guys that might work where you are, do
Yeah, they don't.
they
They
don't
don't
get
have
it?
it.
No.
No,
No, I had my cousin who's 16 years old started working at the Ford plant. He got one. It was part of the benefit.
good for
That's
him,
how
I
that's
guess.
how they attracted some of the younger people.
Yeah, it's gonna be
So,
interesting to see how they attract workers in
right.
as time progresses and as the labor market gets tighter and tighter. Um, what they're going to do in terms of employee retention and attracting new talent, because I mean you could attract people by working from home, you could attract them by more vacation and a lot of maybe fringe benefits where it doesn't really come out of the pocket of the employer. So I mean
You know what?
I'd like to have a lot of weeks off.
Yeah, I know. I got a question for you because you
Mhm.
you brought it up. So if interest rates continue to climb, because we've only really seen this once before, where it was that, what was it, the 70s, where interest rates sustained over 10% for long enough.
Yeah.
What is, so let's just say it hits 14, 15%, and it stays there for a while. What's stopping me from just start loaning cash at 12% and beating everybody else?
It's well, the market sets what that rate is, so I don't know. They just all
But
use
that, but
that
that's
rate.
that's the that's the pool that's to pull loans from out of thin air, right? You have to use that rate to
Well,
pull a loan out of thin air. But what if I have 100 grand in cash and I just hand that, I sign a contract and I say, all right, here's 100 grand, you can go buy a car, but you have to pay me back at 12%. And I'd rather just do that than try to risk it in a market.
I mean, you could if you're an
And that beats
individual and
every
you want to
bank.
and you
Yeah,
want
and
to do
that beats
that.
every bank.
But
It's almost like I'm going to be my own bank, but I always lend with cash. I
yeah,
never,
you could. But the tough part here is the interest rate has always been driven by the real estate market historically. And what happens is credit comes into the system at a faster pace than what we can grow gross domestic product, which is inflation. So it kind of comes in and then GDP catches back up. But that's always been in a resource rich world. What happens if your credit expansion comes up or has to grow because your interest payments, they're doing deficit spending, the interest payments start to come up. And let's say they get runaway interest payment problems where they just do deficit spending like an infinitum. Like they have to literally print as the interest rates go up. I think there will be a disconnect where interest rates go up. If oil's constrained, I think there's a way that you can get disconnected from the housing market at some point if you're short oil, where the housing market could go down and interest rates just go vertical because you go into a like a hyperinflation problem or something like that, and everybody just dumps bonds. But I don't know. I mean, that's possible, but I don't know. I don't know how that's possible, because anybody who has any sort of asset in that scenario, they're gonna exchange dollars for whatever they can buy, and I would think that dollars would run at housing, because what would happen in that scenario is all the money would rotate out of bonds, because bonds are going to go to zero then. If bonds go to zero and you've got trillions upon trillions of dollars looking for a home, I mean, it's going to go to housing. It has to go somewhere. And then your stock market would crash too, because your interest rates would go up uncontrollably, pricing the asset to zero, because basically what everybody would figure out is that the future earnings that people are pricing these stocks are at risk, because you don't have the energy for the future earnings to exist in a really high energy environment. So I would think the stock market would get smoked. And the only thing that would really work in that scenario from an investment perspective is anything energy related, and anything that is wealth preservation related,
or any embedded energy type asset,
or any embedded energy too, I guess, because I don't know how you could take a stock that converts commodities using energy. I mean, that's all the stocks out there. Basically, and a service stock is just more or less using a product, or maintaining a product, or cleaning a product, or whatever it is. If your energy gets really expensive, I don't know how those companies could exist, because then everybody would be like, I can't afford anything. I can't afford a car at $500,000. So everybody stops buying cars. They stop traveling. They stop doing all these different things. And all that money gets focused to food, transportation, healthcare, and whatever else, those types of things. So I would think the whole chunk of society would have to shift, and more people would shift to gathering energy, or producing products that gather energy. That's kind of the way that I view it. But your currency, your currency's at risk if something happens.
But then everyone's currency would be at risk too.
Yeah, but then think about that for a second though. Like, really think about that. So if everyone's currency is at risk in not everyone, but let's say a large portion of the world's currencies are at risk, where's all that money going to go? If all of this value has been pushed into financial products, it all has to unwind and run at hard assets, which means that all of the value that used to exist in financial products would then be transferred to all of the things that exist in the real world that have value. And energy is the one that makes that transfer happen. It's the translator.
So a lot of that cash, a lot of the financial, what did you call it?
Financial products.
Yeah.
Financial assets, financial products.
But a lot of that is debt based, right? So what we would see is the non-debt based financial products would be chasing commodities. And do we know what that percentage looks like?
No. The financial product value. So right now, if you have a bond, it has value, right? You could say $100 bond. So you have $100 value of this bond.
Yep.
But if that's all going to zero, that value doesn't just dissipate. It gets transferred to something else. Because what some's going to happen is, if they have a $100 bond, let's say I've got a $100 bond, and they say, I want $100 worth of whatever the final payment is. So they sell the bond, get cash, and then they go try to buy something with it. But what if everyone does that at once? So you've got like 15 or you've got $100 trillion that says, I want to go buy stuff. Well, how does it buy stuff? What does it do? Like, or what if you have 200 trillion worldwide, all running at what? A 1 trillion market cap of gold?
Yeah.
A
land as well.
1 billion 1 billion market cap of platinum or something. Like, how does the world absorb that value? Because that value is only there because people think that the world's going to be at a larger, more a larger future than what we have today. More products, more services, growing at an exponential rate of some percent growth.
People are going to run after chickens.
Well, they're running after eggs right now.
Yeah,
I'll tell you that.
yeah. So they're gonna run after chicken. Why
There's
buy eggs
shortage.
while this?
I mean, I don't know. We probably go to the same stores, but
Yeah.
for a while, I couldn't even buy eggs like anywhere of any kind for like 2, 3, 4 weeks or whatever. And then eggs started slowly coming back. And the difference between like the crappiest eggs and the best eggs, I mean, like the premiums are just like coming to like very tight.
Well,
So like in
it wasn't doing that. It was doing this. Did you notice?
yeah, I mean
Yeah,
it's like so tight right now. Like the best eggs you can buy, like the blue, brown, like the coatings are
yeah.
super
It's like
thick when you
seven
crack them.
dollars, seven
Yeah,
dollars a
they're like
dozen.
seven something dollars, and then like the crap stuff's like six something or $6.
Yeah,
And I'm like,
yeah. It used to be $2.
I know it used to be, I don't know what, for the more expensive eggs, $3, $4 or something like that, and then the crappier
Yes.
ones were like $2 or something, a dollar something. But
Yeah, all the free range stuff was around like $4, and now it's like
yep,
$7. And then the Kroger or the Best Value Walmart brand stuff was like 99 cents for a little while. Then it's $2. Now it's like $6.
yes,
And
it's
now
it's
everyone's
horrible.
running towards chickens. You know what? I'll just start a chicken hen. Like I'll just put them in my backyard, let them lay eggs. That's what my neighbor does.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
But
I
I
mean
hear
it's
that's
tough.
expensive too, but and you gotta
Yeah, you
deal with
got to feed them
chickens.
and
Yeah, you gotta deal with
clean
them.
them, and yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's crazy. I don't know. Every time I think about it, I always think like, what do I need in my house that I could buy now with cheap energy where it may be super expensive like 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now. I keep going back to like my furnace, but like even then, maybe the older furnaces are more reliable than the newer ones because it seems like, I don't know what it is, and maybe we can talk about this as well. It seems like to me that the peak of cost, reliability, and everything was in the mid 2000s. Like it seems like that was like the best era of production of goods and
Hmm.
services for the most reliable, like for value, reliable, and best designs were all like 99, like late 90s all the way to maybe 2010 or something. Because you look at the new stuff and it just doesn't seem like it lasts as long. It looks like everything's just cheap pieces of crap. And then
Yeah.
they charge a whole bunch of money for it. They throw some like, some digital whatever board on there, and I just look at it like this thing's gonna break in a heartbeat. Like,
And it's
you
planned
know,
now.
I mean, I look at some of the cars. They integrated the software and the heating and all that stuff all together, and I'm like, that is such a bad idea because computers don't last that long. I mean, they last what, like 5, 6 years, and then, I mean, if you lose that screen, what do? You lose the heat in the car. You have to go get it like
Yep.
fixed or replaced. That's horrible. Why don't you just put a little dial that turns it on, turns it off, or and have
Yeah, and
has like a
there's
medium,
no texture either, so you have to actually pay attention to your screen just to turn the heat on.
right?
When you could be looking at the road and you could feel the textures to know what you're touching.
Yep.
Yeah, I've
It,
always
it,
had that complaint
yeah.
too, but I've been complaining about that since the iPod. And I was like in middle school. And then I remember when I was in high school, the Zune came out. Do you remember Microsoft Zune, that
Hmm.
MP3 player?
Yeah.
So the iPod turned to the not the iPhone, it was before the iTouch. They had the iTouch, so no buttons. They got rid of all buttons. And I remember thinking, I hate that. I want buttons because I want to be able to adjust volume and do things without having to look at my screen if it's just in my pocket. Um, but I lost that fight. Everything's touchscreen now. I've been
Hmm.
saying I didn't like that design for 15 years, but there's other applications that you need a touchscreen for, and now they just want to throw that at everything. Whether you have a touchscreen on your fridge, a touchscreen on your microwave, I'm sure they have touchscreens on anything you name it, right? It's on
Yeah.
there.
I don't know. I always think like the mid 2000s were like the peak era for cheapness, value,
Oh,
reliability,
for
like
sure.
all that
I
stuff.
bet if I could find that Zune, it still works.
Yeah,
Yep.
agreed. And then now, I mean, I look at some of these the cost. I mean, here's something that I think is completely ridiculous. All right, I'm not a clothes person. All right, I buy cheap clothes. Like regular shirts. Like I have a long sleeve flannel on. I even have a little bit of paint on it because I was painting. the My shirts are like $3, $4 each or something like that, or $5, $6 for a long sleeve thermal or something. And then I look at the washing machine, and I was looking at it, and there was a washing machine. It was like I think it was like $1,400 or something like that. And I'm looking at this and I'm like, $1,400 to wash clothes, and I don't even own $1,400 worth of clothes. Like what's the point of
Oh,
buying a $1,400 washing machine to wash clothes that aren't even worth $1,400? Like, I'm just like trying to think this through, and I'm like, if I can buy clothes, and let's say I can buy shirts for, I don't know, like $3-4 each, right? And then if you think of it like you have a washing machine, and let's say it's like, okay, so what's $1,200? You multiply that by 0.1. Let's say I can get a 0.1 return in a year. That's $120. And if my shirts are like $3 each, I can buy 40 shirts. But if you have $1,200 and you have $3 a shirt, I can buy 400 shirts. I mean, I don't even need a washer. I could just buy like brand new shirts, wear them for like 3 or 4 days, throw them out, and put a new shirt on. And if I can get 3 days on average, that's 1,200 days divided by 365. I can go 3.28 years buying $3 shirts for the price of a washing machine. And then I could probably do the same with pants. And you don't even really need to wash pants that often for the
yeah,
dryer. I can
yeah,
have three
yeah.
or four, and then the washer and dryer I mean, some of them they'll just break after like 4 or 5 years anyway. And it's like I just buy new clothes and not even wash them, and I'd be better off
Well, that's
than
that's what
buying
they say about cars too.
running
Yeah,
a
you tell
washing
you tell
machine.
someone to go buy a $5,000 beat up car, and they go, "Well, I want the reliability and how it will last a long time if I buy a new car." And it's like, well, a new car's 50 grand. I bet if you bought 10 Honda Civics one after the other, it's going to last you a lot longer than whatever 2023
Mhm.
car you buy for 50 grand. It's the
You
same
have to
thought process there.
you still have to pay for water too, water and electricity to wash your clothes.
It's
Man, this is getting pretty
and
bad. Like this is
and oh
it's,
no, oh no,
and then you have to pay taxes on what's $1,400. I mean, what's our tax rate, like 8% or something?
like 8% sales tax. Yeah,
Yeah, so if it's like $1,400 times 0.08,
man, that's like another 100 shirts.
it's $112 divided by three. It's another 37 shirts on taxes. We don't get taxed on shirts, do we? On
I don't
clothes?
know. I,
We
maybe,
don't in Minnesota. I think we do here in
yeah.
Colorado. We don't in Minnesota though. Go to Minnesota, buy all your shirts, bring them back.
Yeah, to bring it right back. Hmm. So what about I don't know if we'll see this in cities, but another thing that I saw I was thinking about Mexico. I've got family that live in I think it's the Chihuahua Mountains. They have family in the Chihuahua Mountains. No one has which by the way is very similar climate to maybe Flagstaff, Arizona, to put
Which
that
is
into
similar to here.
perspective. Yeah, yeah, just not as cold in the winter and a lot hotter in the summer. But
Mhm.
point being is mountainous, very green in terms of the trees and vegetation and things like that. And so one thing I did notice when I visited my family over there is no one owns a heater. They have a fireplace in every room.
Mhm.
Now that only works because they live in the mountains and it's small towns over there. So firewood is plentiful, right? You just walk half a mile out of the town and you could start cutting your own wood if you wanted to.
Mhm.
Um, so the cities would struggle with accommodating that because if you go in the cities anywhere in Mexico, everyone's got a heater because you can't burn firewood. You're in the middle of a city. Can't find wood
Mhm.
anywhere. So I wonder what kind of do you think in a high energy environment would people run to the cities because they're more efficient, or do you think people would run to the like if we rewind 200 years ago, more people lived in a rural environment than an urban environment? You think we would go back to that, or will we run towards the cities where things are walking distance away? There's a centralized energy grid, and everyone can be in one spot, one hub, where things funnel to that hub.
I would think like basically consolidating, and I would think consolidating into like a city would be better, as long as there's people that also do lots of farming and stuff like that. Because if everybody tried to do it themselves, I don't think it would be as efficient.
Yeah, which
And
is what,
yeah,
200 years ago kind of looked like. I think 50% of all US families 200 years ago were considered agriculture. They were working in
Mhm.
the agriculture industry. Today, it's something like 2%, less than 2%.
Yeah, I think that's because energy allowed us to
Yeah, and
to do
technology
that.
too. Yeah,
Technology and energy. Yep.
I mean, John Deere's are self-driving now.
Mhm.
Maybe you don't even need to put a person in it. But then again, I think the people that create the John Deere, I wonder if that's considered agriculture jobs. Maybe not.
Mhm.
It's probably um we might, I don't know. I don't know which direction it would take, but it, that's an interesting thing to think of too, right? They don't, in Mexico, in those mountainous towns, they don't use heaters. The thought doesn't even cross their mind. It's like there's firewood everywhere. I have
Yep.
fireplaces in every room. Why would I go buy a 2,000, or no, not $2,000. That's like a water heater, an $8,000 furnace and installation and everything. No, I'll
Mhm.
just burn firewood.
They probably
And
don't
where,
have the hookups for natural gas anyway.
yeah,
My guess. Yep.
that town is probably coal,
Is probably you said cold or coal?
coal for electricity over there.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
COLE. Gotcha.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah. What else? What else we got? Anything else?
Yeah. The last one in terms of value, I think about this a lot because I'm a military
Mhm.
guy, but the defense sector in a high energy environment, I think would get hit really hard. And the reason being is because the most expensive thing, um, I don't know if I can quote this to anyone. It was some famous general in World War II that said, um, captain commanders win battles, brigade commanders win planning, and then they said generals win war through logistics. So the way you win wars and the way um, and you plan them is purely through logistics. That's the most important thing, most important element in war. And so I wonder when I think of the U.S. military logistics or NATO logistics, you have military bases all over the world, and they are very specific for U.S. goods, right? It's not like you're buying local stuff, local food, and local um, weapons, and you just bring it to the military base. No, you ship everything from the U.S.
Mhm.
So I wonder if these, if you have investments in defense contracts, if that would go down because it would just get so expensive that the military is like, well, you know what, we can't continue to exercise annually our fleet of 1,000 F-35s. We can't afford the energy costs of that. So we're going to scale it down to 250 aircrafts. And so now what, Lockheed Martin, I think, owns that contract. And so if they own the manufacturing production for F-35s, that contract is going to go away and it's going to get reduced. So now Lockheed Martin is going to go down in value. So that is on my mind because I mean, the U.S. industrial complex is massive. And so the defense contractors benefit so hugely from that complex but if energy costs skyrocket, I mean, just think of the number of bases that are overseas that would shut down because it costs way too much money to import goods over there.
Well, yeah, but you also have the interest payments that are going to screw you over because if energy costs go up, your interest payments go up, which is going to squeeze absolutely everything.
Yeah.
Or they just deficit spend it and you get massive inflation, which then in turn increases and cycles back up your oil price, which cycles up your interest rate, which then cycles it back again if they continue to deficit spend, and it just goes in an inflationary loop.
Well, then that's when you change the rules.
Yeah, which is
I don't
basically
know.
soon. It should be
Yeah.
pretty soon. So I don't have anything else. If you do you have anything else that you'd like to share on the
No,
topic?
I think I named off about three. What was it? Amazon defense contract, maybe the motorcycles. Those are just on my mind, right? And just driving down the road and I see someone barreling down in a Dodge 2500 and I think to myself, I don't think that truck's going to be around in 20 years if things
Mhm.
go south. And I wonder how many people think that. Not a lot. I doubt it. But
Oh, hardly anybody.
yeah, or I think most people look at that and go, that will be electric in 10 years. And I think, yeah, maybe that might
I
not even happen either.
I
I
think
don't
we could
know.
maybe I think we could maybe pull off everyone having electric motorcycles, maybe. Because then you don't need the
Yeah.
batteries. I mean, it just shrinks everything up. Rather than moving a 4,000 or 5,000 pound vehicle, you can move 50 pound bike with an occupant on it. And I think that's easily doable with a small battery. So
Mhm. And you could tow something like a kid.
yeah, tow a little,
Groceries.
tow a little thing, have little kids. Yeah. Tow a little kid back there.
And some groceries.
Yeah.
Well, you get a side cart, like those old school motorcycles with a side cart on it.
Yep. Yep. Now we're going to an ATV.
Oh yeah. Well, you're not right, man. I mean, everyone might be driving around in utility vehicles like golf carts, like
Yeah.
the
Yep.
four-wheeler type utility
Yep.
vehicles, and they're just
Yep.
electric based. That might work. Maybe we can make that happen. Yeah.
Yeah.
Put a glass shield, you'll still get heated. Well, now I'm just describing a smart car.
And all of a sudden we're back to a car again. Dang it.
Yeah, we're back to a It's just that's the most lightweight, fuel efficient car you can get. Look, you can somewhat comfortably fit 3 people or 4 people.
Yep.
Actually, no, the front two would fit, the back two would suck. But hey,
Yeah.
you're gonna get 100 miles per gallon in that thing, so I would buy it.
That's what we're going for in the future.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't have anything else, Andrew. Anything else?
No, nothing else. Just a
Nothing
fun
else.
conversation because I doubt that when anything like this ever, if any of these predictions even happened, it's gonna be so far the future, the last thing anyone's going to remember is, hey, let's rewind 10 years ago to go comment on this video that they called it. Because who knows, right? Who knows?
Right.
Just a fun thing to observe when you're driving down the road.
Right. So that's all I've got, guys. Well, we can end it there. Thanks for coming on, Andrew. Really
Yeah.
appreciate it. And again, guys, if you want to join the channel, just go ahead and click subscribe. Give me a thumb up. Give Andrew a thumb up. And that's all we've got for today. So we'll catch you next time. This is Finding Value and Andrew.